All right, strap in, kids. It's going to get bumpy. It's a massive week in politics. Phala Phala report set to be debated in Parliament tomorrow. And then just as you've digested that, it's all going to unravel this weekend, possibly at the ANC National Elective Conference. And getting ready for that, he's done his stretches. He's found all the energy drinks in Johannesburg. Lukhona Mnguni on the spot. And what a week it's going to be. I mean, I don't know where to begin. Are we going to talk about first, Lukhona, those who are in, or, if you like me, more interestingly, those who are out? What stands out for you?
I think, Gareth, what stands out the most, and good morning to you and our viewers, is those who are out because they are quite aggrieved. And as you would have seen in the past week, those who are out in a number of ways. Some did not secure the minimum threshold, such as, Minister Lindiwe Sisulu, who wrote a letter protesting this to the Electoral Commission that is governing this, elective process and nomination process towards the elective process. Secondly, some are not in because they've received political love letters from former President Kgalema Motlanthe that outline, their misconduct over the years and the things that they've been found guilty of, and how that makes them disqualified to stand for positions of consideration in the National Executive Committee. So I think we are faced with those two things, that people are out, and the first one will form part of credentials when, credentials have to be adopted and nominations have to be confirmed by conference. The second one will probably be debated politically as to whether or not people have not repented since that misconduct was detected.
Let's talk about this debate coming up in Parliament tomorrow, Phala Phala. Do you see anything drastically changing between this debate tomorrow and when all of us are hanging around Nasrec over the weekend? I would suggest no. It's going to be business as usual, and it's going to get kicked down the road into next year.
Look, it's a difficult one because literally it's a debate that happens 3 days before conference commences. So I saw in the weekend papers that, chairperson of the ANC, Gwede Mantashe, was threatening people with disciplinary measures if they vote against the party line tomorrow. But it's really an important assertion by him, because he might not even come back within the next 5 days as part of the top six of the ANC or even part of its leadership. So it's a difficult one. Politically, I think those who want to rebel, this is the most important political moment to do so.
Let's just look ahead to this weekend as well, because obviously that's going to be the big focus for the ANC. A lot is going to go on. There's going to be credentials, and there's going to be a lot of backwards and forwards in politicking. And I suppose that's why we have experts like you to try and weed through all the mess. What is the one thing someone watching now, Lukhona, who doesn't follow it the way that we do as the media and the way that you do as an analyst, what's the one thing this weekend that someone should be looking out for?
There are two things I would say. The first one is, how quickly we are able to move away from that closed plenary session. As you know, Gareth, the National Executive Committee has almost done what I call set up conference for potential chaos, because one of the first things that conference has to deal with when the organizational report is tabled by the Deputy President, David Mabuza, are the recommendations of the Integrity Commission insofar as President Ramaphosa is concerned and presidential candidate Willem Mkhize is concerned. So both their reports were not processed by the NEC, and I saw that as an abdication of duty. They've kicked down for touch to conference. And of course, politically, it's a smart strategy, because if the president survives that debate, it almost gives you the sense of numbers that he can marshal in that conference. And what it does is that it offers those close to the president to even consider nominations from the floor, insofar as making sure that the president has a top six that's quite cohesive, that is not as divided as what we saw outside of Nasrec. So I'll be seeing how swiftly that debate on the organizational report moves, because that will be the clearest indicator of potentially how conference will go. So if there's one thing, I think that's one thing for you.
Yeah, it's the one thing. Are you expecting any surprises? I know you've whipped out and charged up your crystal ball as well. Any surprises you're expecting this weekend?
Well, I mean, sometimes it's a crystal ball, sometimes it's a combination of, just a close listening exercise, Gareth. Flying back to Joburg last night, I was with a very interesting character in the ANC ecosystem. And one of the things that we spoke about at length was whether or not, the presidential, the candidates for the Treasurer General are fit for purpose. And it seems as if there is enough consideration that even though 3 people have made it in terms of being nominated to that position, none of them appears to be pleasantly, received by a number of people, including given that the TG of the ANC often interacts with investors and it has to fundraise and so on. So there might just be a surprise nomination from the floor for the position of Treasurer General. I'm also looking out whether there's going to be an upset for the Secretary General. It seems like a 2-horse race between Fikile Mbalula and Mdumiseni Ntuli. And it's really going to be interesting because Mdumiseni Ntuli leads in terms of nominations, but Fikile Mbalula was sort of a later entrant and managed to amass enough, nominations. But also a number of the leaderships in the provinces are people who have led in the youth league structures, and they've led with Fikile Mbalula, some of them, and whether that will be a significant boost for them. I mean, that this is 10 years later. Fikile Mbalula tried to stand for the same position in the build-up to the Mangaung conference in 2012. So those are some of the things that I'll be looking for in terms of will there be upsets or will there be, a change in fortune? Because if Mbalula were not to make it, it would mean that he probably can't contest for that position again because he's been rejected twice by conference.
And it's going to be a case of on the spot for the president and in the spotlight for the ANC this weekend. Thankfully, we're going to have political analyst Lukhona Mnguni, who doesn't need any sleep whatsoever from Friday all the way through to next weekend as well. We'll hear from Lukhona, no doubts, as we continue our build-up and what will be wall-to-wall coverage of the ANC elective conference this coming weekend out at Nasrec.